Good morning, everyone. All the darkness in the world cannot hold back the light of the smallest flame. It's a theme from the Christophers, but it's really something that helps us to understand what is in us. All the darkness in the world cannot hold back the light of the smallest flame, and that flame is Christ in us. So more about that in just a moment. Let's just do a quick review from last week. So we saw that Jesus came forward and he called. He called Peter, Andrew, James, John, and it almost seemed like it was just a spur of the moment, and they just walked up to them, said, "Follow me," and they followed. What we didn't see, and what we came to understand, is that the call from God, the call comes in the common thread. And that is to say that what we saw in the gospel was that common thread being drawn, and all of the experiences that they had in the past now have come to a clarity. And God does call. He calls us to a vocation in life. He calls us to do something today. So that common thread could come in a number of experiences within an hour, and that last experience, it's drawn, so it's this one, this one, this one, and now all of a sudden this current experience, it's drawn, and all of those experiences come together, and we see with clarity what we're called to do. It could be over a course of 10 years. So I shared a little bit of my vocation story, and it was this experience. Lord, what do you want me to do? He gave me this one, this one, this one, this one, and it wasn't until that last one where he just showed the common thread within all of those experiences. The reality is God continues to call you and me. Certainly it calls us to a vocation, whether that's the single life or married life, or consecrated and religious life, or the priesthood. He calls us to do something today. And he's going to do that where the call comes in the common thread. He'll bring everything together, we see, and that is when we act. All the darkness in the world cannot hold back the light of the smallest flame. So we celebrate the candle mass today. All of these, perhaps some of you brought candles from home or votive candles that you'll take home, and that you'll light that candle and maybe pray. It should be a reminder. It could be really, maybe it'll be a reminder that it is Christ in you that is the hope of glory. And that if we realize this, that the more we're able to fan that flame within us, then God will make Christ present to the world through us. The simple message today is, what can you and I do to fan that flame of Christ in us? See, we certainly can make a difference in the world, and it could be just the natural virtue that God gave us. It's always, though, it's 100% of God, and it's a part of us as well when we respond to the grace that God gives us. But the more that we understand that it's Christ in us that will transform the world, and we realize there we need to take a conscious effort to do something to fan the flame of Christ in us. Now, what does that mean? Maybe, and we talked about this over the last couple of months, the difference between chronological time and kairos. Remember, kairos is that it's God's time, and he whispers in the silence. So we take time in prayer, and we listen. He's maybe been talking to you and saying, do this. Do this, and it's going to fan the flame of Christ in you. What is it? It could be simply, I'm going to start praying the rosary again every day. I think a couple of times a week, I'm going to come in and spend 15 minutes in adoration. Maybe he's been pushing you to step forward and say, I'll be an extraordinary minister of Holy Communion. Or I'm going to volunteer, I'm going to get on the schedule, and I'm going to read. Or I'm going to volunteer at the school. Or whatever it is. What is he whispering to us? Just one thing. One thing to fan the flame of Christ in you. That ardent flame of charity within us, Christ will change the world. And he does so when he burns brighter in our actions, in our life. So again, I say all the darkness in the world cannot hold back the light of the smallest flame. Let's fan that flame of Christ in us all the more. One thing. What is it? What's he been whispering?